Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you so much for watching the Once an Orphan podcast. I'm Jasmine. Joining me today is Miss Taza Simone. Miss Taza Simone, thank you so much for joining me today. We know that your story is very sensitive, but one that should be told. And so, not to waste any time, I want to jump into it. So, Taja, you were born into a sex cult.
Yes, ma'am.
And at a very early age, with the help of your mother, your stepfather began to sexually assault, molest you, which led to you giving birth to his baby at the age of 12.
Correct.
Before we get into that, is there any part of your childhood that you have fond memories of?
Um, I would say the best memories that I have growing up, as far as just within growing up in my mom's household, would be when it's just either me, my mom, and my older sister, or times when um, they would get into arguments and he would leave, and it would be just us four and my mom. And I say that because I felt like that's when I got the most authentic version of her. That's when I got um, my mom, when I could go in her room and lay in her bed and talk, and I could laugh and we can watch shows together. Or she may be doing one of my little sister's hair, and I enjoyed the way she got them dressed. So just simple things like that. And I would say the moments growing up, of course, with my cousins and things like that. Specifically towards my mom, those are the best memories.
So basically, any time when your stepfather wasn't around.
Anytime any man wasn't around.
Being born into a sex cult,
Yeah.
born into it tells me you thought life was natural and all of these things were normal at some point.
Well, that's where it gets tricky because I was highly intelligent as a child. And so when you go to school, they teach you about good touch, bad touch. They teach you what's right and wrong. And so it's not like you don't know, because in other environments that's not okay, but you are taught to conform when you are in an environment where that's going on, if that makes sense.
Being born into a sex cult, because I saw your story, and what I found was that the sex cult in your immediate family consisted of your mother, your stepfather,
Hmm.
your grandmother,
Hmm.
your aunt,
Hmm.
your grandfather.
Hmm.
And at one point, your mother, your aunt, and your grandmother all shared your grandfather.
Yeah. So, from my understanding and from how I view things, and I can only go based off of my logic, just because when you ask them questions, they don't want to answer. But it had to be a systematic thing to where it's the kids and she has kids and her kids, just because of the level of loyalty that was already instilled in my mother and my both of my aunts and my grandmother. And when I say the level of loyalty, I mean, if you are allowing someone to abuse your children and you're saying, hey, we have to cover this up, I can only imagine what happened before I got here for it to get to that point. You know what I mean?
It's unnatural for a mother to allow someone to harm their child in any way.
Yeah,
The term mama bear is a real term. You know, we are protective of our children.
absolutely.
Tasia, at what age were you when you realized this is all wrong? My friends don't have the same life. Why is this life that I'm living different from that of my peers?
Um, I knew before we left out of Arbor Crossing Apartments, I'll just say that, because it started at first grade and then continued on through second grade. So we lived in Arbor Crossing Apartments for 2 years. So that's 2 years worth of, that's where a lot of the intense things went on, and then it kind of stopped and then it started again. But I would say right away, because my body, even when you're a child and you're not able to use your words, your body speaks. You know what I'm saying? So I knew it was like something was saying no, but it wasn't a voice, it was an energy, if that makes sense.
When you go back to your first memory of being molested
Yeah.
before the rapings began, and I really do hate to ask you to revisit this moment, but it's so strong, and I know you are sharing the stories with hopes of helping others, as we just
Absolutely.
discussed. What from that memory do you recall?
So, specifically to him, my husband, I remember it's because I used to sleep in the bed with my mom a lot, and so one night I got in her bed, and I would always be in front of her, and like if I'll get in the bed, she'll turn her back and cuddle me this way. But I'm assuming she got comfortable. I started to be in the middle, and then I remember one morning he kind of put his arm over on me, kind of like just closer to me than normal. And I'm thinking nothing of it. I'm a child, and it of course his hand becomes a little bit, he moves his hand more on where my vaginal area is, and he kind of stopped, and then it happened a few more times until he actually touched me. And I remember him kind of putting his body on me, and my mom, I was like taking my hand and hitting her, saying mommy, mommy, and I was grabbing her and shaking her. And there is no way in hell that my mom did not feel that. She it got to the point where I was kicking her hard. And she was like, okay, Tasia, I hear you. Like, so the whole time, I think, I don't know what that was. I don't know if she was seeing how far he was going to go, if he was seeing how far she was going to allow him to go, or if they were seeing how hard I was going to fight. Um, but I'll never forget that moment. I think that was maybe her, maybe psychologically distancing herself from her daughter in a way to
Yeah.
show me that I was on my own. Maybe I'm not really sure what that was.
And from that moment, how did it progress?
Um, well, I think that maybe they had because I can only imagine the conversations that they had outside of when I would come into the room. But there was a moment where he must have said, "Hey, if you're not preparing them for X, Y, and Z, I am not going to be with you anymore." So she called me and my sister into a room, and she said, take all of your clothes off. Brought us into the room. She said, Keon is not going to be with me anymore if I don't let him touch you. And can you do it for me? Can you let him touch you? And we said, no, mom, we don't want to be touched. Um, he he comes in the room, and he's talking to us. He's sitting in a chair. He's talking to us. He calls us to him. Um, and he pulls his penis out, asks us, do we know what it is, things like that. Um, and then, I was a little startled, and I remember I could tell that he felt my uncomfortableness. So she told us to go back in the room. Um, and it progressed from there. Um, as far as just sexually, him pulling his underwear down, him pulling his penis out, him taking all of his clothes off, manipulation, coaching, everything kind of started from there.
And then he had gotten to a point where it just became full on rape.
Absolutely. So some very strange things happened in that apartment to the point to where I can't even be sure to say. And I'm not trying to give anybody any excuse here, but it's for them to be in their right mind and be doing the things that we're doing. I couldn't imagine, and if they are, then I don't know how they're so high functioning. But it was even times where like I would get out of my bed, my mom would call me in the room. Every time she would call me, I would be nervous. which is the reason why I have like deal with high anxiety now. But one night she called me in a room and she asked me, did I want to fight? And I'm like, no, mommy, I don't want to fight. And her boyfriend, now husband, is standing behind her. And she's pushing me down, she's slapping me, she's punching me. And then I remember she spit in my face. And the level of nothingness that I felt, she called me weak because I didn't want to fight back because she spit on me. And I wouldn't wish that level of emptiness, that level of nothingness, that level of pain on any child, knowing that she's the only thing that I have because my father drowned in Lake Michigan when I was 8 months. So you're the only parent that I have, and this is what you're doing. And then it would be more times where they would use my body 3 or 4 times a night, send me back into my room. And I had a hard time sleeping because I never knew when they were going to come in my room. And it got to the point to where I knew when they called me that I'd have to go do something. But if they were just walking past my door, they may be leaving, going to the kitchen. So once they walk past, I'll be fine. One day they're walking past, but they come into my room, and I think I said this on my previous interview that I had to perform fellatio for him, and he asked if he could ejaculate in my mouth, and my mom said we're not going that far. So the level of protectiveness that I felt in that house was little to none. And she kept me and my sister divided, tried to divide us through manipulation. We were in different rooms. So even though we were in the same house, we were not allowed to talk to and speak to each other. And some nights, some days, he'll hit her door before he hits mine. I can't. So certain things I can't account that she's experienced because I didn't see it. But we do have things that we can both say, hey, we were together when this happened. Hey, we both remember this. But being separated, you really don't know what the other child is going through.
Let's rewind just for a second.
Yeah.
Your mother physically attacked you in an attempt to fight and spit in your face.
Mm-hmm.
For what? What took place in that moment or after that made her feel? Did she want you to fight in some sort of way to show? Why would she do that?
I honestly feel like it was because it was like, let's fight over her husband. She was jealous of her kids because you had a pedophile in your home that wanted your children. I just want to say this. I didn't come out of the womb hating my mom. No child comes out not liking their parents. That any relationship, you have to build it. And so if you are not, if you don't have a strong relationship with your child, I'm not saying it's a one-way thing, but what I am saying is for it to be this broken, for these allegations to be here, for all of these things to be here, you had to play a role in this. I passed my polygraph test with flying colors. The military offered you one, you denied it. And honestly, in my mind, it's like, I'm hoping that you say yes, pass it, and we say, hey, we don't know how these are conflicting. That's not the case here. I had to accept that these things are factual. And, going to the OBGYN too, I think that opened my eyes because you want it to be fake. If I could take the red pill and not the blue pill, but I've already swallowed the red pill and I can't go back. It's kind of where I am right now.
When you say they would call you to the bedroom,
Yeah.
what things were they calling the bedroom for?
Sexual activity, fellatio. When they did, so he wasn't just full on putting his penis in and out. At first, she would put the whole bottle of lube. She would take both of her hands and hold my legs open. And he would, if she wasn't holding me down strong enough, if I would move too much, he would yell at her. And I would be telling her it hurts. And she would say, she told me, I put the whole bottle of lube. I know it doesn't hurt. And he would just be doing the tip at first. And then one night he stuck, like, not the whole thing in, but more for my small body to feel it. And I gasped and I just broke down crying. I remember feeling like, no, like I can't really explain the way my body felt, but it wasn't a good feeling. And I remember my mom breaking down in that moment and me being confused on then, why are we doing this? What is this? And though even in those moments, that is where a lot of the muscle relaxers and different type of sedative medicines were given to for me not to fight back, even to the point to where sometimes they would make me inhale marijuana. So it was pretty intense.
And this happened at roughly 7 years old.
This was first through second grade, so 7 through 8. And then they broke up for a small season after they had their first daughter, um, and then that was third grade. Fourth grade is when they got back together, and it started again. And by the time I got to sixth grade, I was pregnant.
So your mother was 100% complicit in all the abuse that you suffered at the hands of your stepfather.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
What's your relationship with her like now?
We don't have a relationship now. It's non-existent.
And how long have you two been estranged?
I haven't spoken to my mom since, I would say, about May 2024.
So almost a year.
Almost a year.
At any point, did she ever take any blame for what happened to you?
No, she's no. I don't know if you've been able to, and if you guys are watching this, you can go to my YouTube channel and watch the 5-part series that I have. But in the recordings that you're listening to, you don't hear any remorse. You just hear this defensiveness, and you don't hear a mother, you don't hear an aunt, you don't hear a grandmother. You know what I mean? And honestly, if I have nieces, I have nephews, I have kids that I love. And if any of them came to me and said, "Hey, I'm being touched. This happened to me," the first questions I'm asking are, "Where were you? What did they do when they walked in the room?" Um, I'm going to ask a plethora of questions. It's not going to be, there was not one question asked. It was just, why are you coming at us like this? And we didn't do this. And just the normal, typical things that someone who's guilty would say.
During all of this, at some point, you realize you're pregnant. What did you know about pregnancy at this age?
So it's funny because I was just learning about it. So in fifth grade, I had a male teacher. His name was Mr. Boss. And we had a female teacher across from him. Her name is Mrs. Dawsey. And so when we first started learning about health, all the girls would go to her, all the boys would go to him, and we would do it separate. And that's where we were learning about hygiene, and our bodies were going to start changing. We were screening older, periods, things like that. Well, I started my period in the health class. And my sister had started hers really early, and I just remember how they spoke under her clothes and made her feel like it was a bad thing. And it really made me feel like I never want to have my period because I don't want to go through that. And so, as you get older, you see your mom go to the store and buy pads, tampons, things like that. Of course, growing up, you see how it's supposed to go on, how things go. So I just decided to be observant and watch how they do things and deal with it myself because I didn't want to go through that. Well, me not telling her that, and then them using the chloroform, which, because like I said, in middle school, you're not just coming in my room and raping me. It's not happening. So that is when they will use the chloroform. Now, I want to clear this up because in the comments in my last interview, someone asked me, how did I know? Like, we know you know what the drug was, but how do you know? So that takes me to the moment that I really didn't get to dive into, which was when I woke up and I saw the substance on me and my underwear were down. So I went to my aunt, went to my grandmother, told them about it. She said, you know exactly what's going on. She's doing her the same way you did us. And my grandmother said, I don't know what you're talking about. And I think that is an old school thing that all the grandmothers used to say, we don't know, turn a blind eye. And that is when the drug got brought up and they were discussing it and everything like that. So that night we talked about the drug. We talked about what was going on. My aunt, who's on that lie detector test, and this is where I feel like she started to feel guilty, because when she did what she did to me, she had one child, which I'm not trying to take away. It was a boy. I think maybe when she had her daughter, maybe that could have, switched something up, because she told me, Taja, don't go to sleep tonight. Stay up. Don't go to bed. They're coming in your room. I'm just going to tell you what's going on. This is what's happening. So I do what she says. I go home. I don't go to bed. I stay up. Lo and behold, they're coming in my room. And I had one of those doors where you can like get in with a butter knife,
Of course.
back in the day, those 90s doors. And so I asked them, why are you coming in my room? Oh, we just wanted to make sure you were sleeping okay. So I think, and then boom, me not telling my mom I'm pregnant, them continuously doing that leads to me being pregnant. My mom looks at me. She says, you look pregnant. You look like something's off. And I took a pregnancy test and I was pregnant. So from that day moving forward, we were up putting saran wrap and like this. It's like a thick, it's kind of like a turban, but it was like a thick cloth to wrap and stick me down, even though I was tiny at the time, just to make sure that there was nothing to be suspected. Because the major thing was, number one, we didn't know she started her period. Number two, we didn't know she was pregnant. Now she's so far along. Number three, regardless of how far along she is, we cannot take her to the abortion clinic. We cannot take her to the hospital. So we have to figure this out here on 1956 Hudson Street in Muskegon, Michigan. And my pregnancy was a big Google. And my mom was, I will say, she was going to school to be a nurse since we were living in those apartments. So she had some knowledge, but it was some real midwife things going on in that house, for sure.
The fact that you called out the address, it tells me that your memory is very vivid of these
Oh, yeah.
things that took place. And when I saw your last video, it was clear you had the lie detector test, that information in it, and all of these things that can't even be debated. What was school like for you? I mean, you're a little girl. You're going to school. You're supposed to be playing double dutch,
Yeah.
participating in PE, running around the block and riding your bike. Instead, you have another human being forming inside your body, unable to participate in childlike activities. What was your school and social life like?
Well, it didn't change much just because no one was supposed to know. So those things, were still going on, just because it was top secret. And what they used to get you to conform was fear, or what was hurting. Like my sister, I knew that my sister was the only support I had in my house when it comes to someone really having my back. So threatening to hurt her, or do something to her. So it was certain things that were done to make sure that we, or threatening to take my two younger sisters away because, like I stated in my last interview, he didn't want kids. So he wanted that separation there. Like I stated before, I think he underestimated how much younger siblings look up to their older siblings. And like when you guys are at work and we're watching the kids and whatever, when we're spending time together, our younger sisters love us. And so now that all of this came out, it was very hard on both of them to know that we've gone through this, to know that my mom, our mom, and their dad has caused this. But to be even more, it hurt me even more because I know that they don't put it past them. It's not like they would never do this. It's like, no wonder why my dad did this or was acting like that, or no wonder why mom said this when you came to visit, or things like that. So none of us really have a relationship with my mom. My younger sister, she has a relationship with my mom, but to be honest, I don't. That doesn't bother me because I can understand she doesn't know the woman that I knew first. She gets the modified version. So
So when you look back at the relationship and the things that your mother allowed to happen, do you feel like your mother ever loved you?
I feel like in the beginning when I came, I feel like in the beginning, yeah, she loved me. I feel like over time, she lost herself, lost love for herself, lost love for her kids. I think she just completely, my mom is gone. I would never get that version of her back. I think the mother that I need her to be, she's gone.
And she's been gone now since you were, would you say, in first grade when all of this started?
I would say I would say for her, I would say being with her, be living in the house with her and having her all the time. That was the last time. I felt like when I started to get older, she tried to split time. Like sometimes she would come in my room and spend 15, 20 minutes with me. And I think, and if she would stay too long, he would call her like, okay, it's time for you to come down now. So I think she was trying, but um, once everything with the baby and everything, I think there was maybe a little bit of resentment there, because my baby and my little sister would not be far apart at all. They were both small babies. So that should tell you a little bit about why she is being hidden so hard as well.
In the comments, in the world of social media, people are saying, yo, your mother should be in jail, her husband should be in jail, your grandmama, granddaddy, auntie, everybody. There's something narcissistic about this behavior to know that while you're being abused and everyone knows about this abuse, it was kind of like, well, just pray about it. Tasia, it's gonna be okay. How did you feel about that?
Um, it's interesting that you say that because someone else told me, like, Tasia, the moment you speak on about your daughter, you having your daughter, and your mom and your daughter is laying in the bed, and you feel like the love of your daughter is helping you turn over a new leaf, and that she loves her. She said, "No, Tasia," because I was explaining to her my mom and my dad's relationship and how my mom comes from a total different background than my dad, and how he gave her a lot of the street knowledge that she has, and she said, Tasia, no, your mom is street smart. Your mom was making you comfortable so they can come and take your child. It was no love for that child. If it was any love for you, you wouldn't even have a child in your bed. She was like, she was not loving your child. She's like, I hate to say that. She's heard me say that in my previous interview, and she's like, no, she was getting you comfortable. And your grandmother, you're right, she's a narcissist. Teaching me God, yes, but also in the same breath, using God to manipulate me, which is a manipulation tactic that has been used against us for years. And it's sad that she decided to do that. So, you know.
That child will never not wonder where you are. I searched for my biological mother. I found her. She's deceased. I'm 46 years old. I have no idea who my biological father is. The search continues. That child will not ever stop looking for you. What do you know? How long, rather, after you gave birth at home, um, when the baby was delivered by your mother, all of that? How long after did this baby disappear?
So it was kind of blurry because I remember being in an immense amount of pain. And I remember sweating, sweating, sweating. And I think the sweating was coming from I feel like you've had a child, it's a full body of pain and you're sweating because it's like your body is fighting the pain, if that makes sense. But I remember screaming for my mom, and I remember feeling like my stomach was tightening, and like pulling, but the pain was coming towards the center of my stomach. And my mom calling her friend and saying, "Hey, she's about to have this baby. Like, I need some help. Get over here." My best friend's brother, my mom's best friend, me, my aunt Tanisha, all in the room when I had my child. And I don't know, they must have given me. I remember them pushing down on my stomach after, but I remember my mom having the baby at one point and saying whatever she was going to do to the child, she couldn't do it in that moment. I remember her saying that the baby was beautiful. Um, and I remember just feeling completely depleted, like no energy. Even if I wanted to hold her, it was like I just felt like, and I honestly felt like I was dying. Just because I don't know if it was a mental thing or what, but I remember telling my mom, like, if you can't save me, save my baby. Whatever happens, if you can't save me, save her. And mom told me, I'm going to save the both of you. And she did look at her with a gaze that I felt like could have been some sort of love. But, you know, I guess not. So I would say maybe 2 months.
And then the baby just suddenly disappeared.
Well, yeah, I got out of school. Well, this would be the routine every morning. Once I had her, I would get up in the morning. I would take her down. My mom, and my child would sleep in the bed. My mom would go downstairs. I would go to school. I would get out of school, go in my mom's room, get my baby, go upstairs, play with her, do my mommy thing, feed her, change her, and then my mom would come upstairs and we would do that. So I think too, knowing that I wanted her to have a schedule, she was going with that schedule only to deceive me in the end. So once I got comfortable, that went upstairs to go to bed, me, mom, and the baby, and woke up and she's gone. So once you have a baby, you need rest. Your body needs rest. So you have to be around someone you can trust to get that good sleep to be able to take care of the child. Me thinking that I could get that good rest with my mom, and then boom, she's not there. It's just a pain that I can't explain.
Does it bother you when you hear people say certain things about your mom in the comments?
No, because I would say the same things.
So, mom should be in jail. You agree?
Absolutely.
Mom was crazy.
Absolutely.
Mom is at fault.
Absolutely.
All of this. From my understanding, there are no statute of limitations on rape.
There isn't, and there is a such thing in Michigan called the Survivors Act, and that is that trumps the statute of limitation, because if it's something that, just say someone raped you and then you were trying to get away and you got in a car accident and it made you lose your memory, and then you completely forget about everything, and then you decide, like, hey, wait a minute, that's why I was driving fast, that's why things start to come back, then you could fight it. So we try to use that, but so all the documents that I came forth with was my OBGYN documentation. I explained the whole story to her. She said everything that I described matches what she sees. That's why in the documentation it says OS consistent with prior pregnancy. I have 2 lie detector tests, 8 questions. All of the questions cover the chloroform and propofol questions as far as me being drugged, me having my daughter, my mom, my grandfather, my aunt, all of them touching me, raping me. Like, it covers everything. The military flew out, gave me an intense interview. The detective is named Allegra. She offered them I had to pay for mine. She offered them a free one, and they still declined. And I think that spoke volumes. The reason why the case was closed is because they said that I didn't have enough hardcore evidence to put someone in jail for life. Because if it's going to be rape, then they have to have, something that's more hardcore. So with me being frustrated, me not, driving back and forth to Muskegon to talk to the prosecutors, just feeling depleted, I decided, let me focus on, because I had just graduated. I'm like, I'm moving to Texas. let me focus on getting there and starting at TSU, because regardless of what's going on in life, something has to be going right. Like, I can't let the past dictate my future. So I decided to just say, okay, I'm not going to fight it right now because I have other things to tend to, and my education is very important to me, and I didn't want to neglect that based on past trauma, because that's how I fight it, by becoming something, by being something and being someone, you know.
Now you feel like maybe my mother didn't love me as much. How much do you love your mother?
That's a good question. I feel like, because I've always felt like the love that you have for someone else does not dictate how much they love you. So you have to just accept how you feel. And I feel like I love her enough that God would be pleased with that. He doesn't say you have to like everyone. He doesn't even. I'm not even gonna say I love her. You know, it's hard. It's a tainted love. It's a tainted love, and I think that love just comes from her bringing me into this earth, on this earth, and the fact that she's connected to my other younger sisters, and I know that deep down inside they have love for her. So I have to have a little respect for that. But honestly, my true feelings, like I said, I have kids that I love, and I think that if it were my child, just say this happened and it was just recent and it was my child, I would be on WZZM 13 News or any other news station about my kids. Now, because it's me, and it was basically, I was going through trafficking before trafficking was had a title, had a name. As far as the drugs that were used, as far as the kids being separated. If you ever saw the movie Taken, you'll see that's how it is. When she wakes up after being taken, she's distorted. She's wondering how she got there. It's a powerful drug, and so yeah, I would say I love. I wish her the best. I can't even. It's hard to answer the question because everything is so fresh. But I just wish her the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
But she better be lucky it wasn't my kids.
Um, if you had the chance, do you love her enough to save her life in any way?
No,
If you had the other, no.
no, because she didn't save my daughter's life and she didn't save mine. So no, no.
And that's a real feeling.
Yeah.
And I don't care what anyone says. That's still your mother. Y'all mind your business on this one, okay?
Okay.
You can't tell someone how to feel about their lived experience. You, at a very early age, Tasia,
Hmm.
you were drugged, molested, abused, raped, manipulated. You're going through all of this at such a young age. Um, and your family now probably feels like you're the problem. How do they feel about when they hear you share your story?
Um. Well, from my understanding, the production company that I just filmed with, they've already sent cease and desist letters and ready to sue because I told my story. So that's a little bit of how they feel as of recently. But of course, they don't like it. Of course, anytime someone is pulling your skeletons out of the closet, you feel um, in an uproar. But oh well, that's my truth. It's my testimony.
Right. Um, sorry, not
Yeah,
sorry.
sorry, not sorry, sweetheart.
Yeah. People have to understand that you're entitled to tell your story. It's your story. This is what you live. This is what you experience. And do you find healing in it when you talk about it?
Absolutely. I found empowerment in it. I find my voice. I find my strength. And I'm inspired by myself. I get inspired because I wasn't always this strong. This is I was a little girl once too, without a father and no one standing in front of me. So this strength comes from perseverance, and pushing through. So yeah,
Did you and your older sister have the same father?
yes,
Okay. And then your younger siblings have their father by
my mom too.
her
Hmm.
husband. Pardon me if I can't refer to him as your stepfather, because even the term stepfather puts you in a position of like a caring position. And based on what you're telling me, and based on what you've proven, no part of father should be in his name, none. So I noticed you said his name earlier. You don't make it an effort to conceal his identity, do you?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Good. I sometimes wonder what we're doing when we decide to make up names and not say his names or her name, for the fact that we're protecting them when you were the victim.
Absolutely. And
Why?
let's say their names now. We have Kenyon Knox, which is the stepfather. We have Rashika Hatcher, which is the wife, also known as my mom. You have Tanisha Hatcher, which is the sister, and the aunt, which is also on the lie detector test. You have Timothy Hatcher, which is the grandfather. Marion Hatcher, which is the grandmother. Jaquita Hatcher, which is the other sister. She lives in LA, but definitely feels like she knew something. I hate to add everyone, but she knew something. And yeah, those are the that's my immediate family, and I only say that because if she grew up in that house and she knows that we're around him, and don't get me wrong, she may have had the strength to just get her and her son out of there and go off and try to be in, because it's not like my aunt went into moved to LA and went to this perfect life. It's expensive in LA with the baby, and she's what, 19, so she just runs off and starts a life there. So who's to say if she was scared, if she knew that, like, hey, I got to find a way, but it's hurtful because you still knew I was not. I mean, at what point were you going to do anything? I mean, I understand people mind their business if it's not their kids, but I don't understand at the same time, because we have to start looking out for one another. When you see a little girl going through something, you have to say something, because you can't just look out for your child only because, okay, so when you put your child on the school bus, you're looking for the bus driver to bring her home safely. So you're looking for someone else to look out for your child. When you go drop them off at school, you're looking for that teacher to make sure your child is safe. So the same way you look for other people to look out for your child, you should look out for someone else's child. Even if it's not going to your sister, going to your grandfather, how about go to the other side of the family? How about call CPS? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of different things that could have been done. So
When we think about your biological father, did how much of this, if any, did his side of the family know what's going on?
well, I believe they know a little bit. I know my aunt knows some things, as far as like seeing me after I was brutally beaten when I was 7 in Arbor Crossing Apartments in Muskegon, Michigan. My aunt ended up seeing me after that, and she was in tears, and she's like, "What happened? What happened to her? What happened to her?" This is my father's twin. My dad was a twin, and my mom was saying, I can't tell you who did this to her. They're going to kill us. Um, just a lot of different things. And my aunt ended up telling my dad's mom. Mind you, my dad's mom has 20 plus years. She's been managing a shelter, and she also helps battered women get transportation, get housing, things like that. So she can identify trauma, and she has her own testimony too. So she can identify trauma very easily. So they were trying to get us away from them, so their skeletons again won't be pulled out of the closet. Um, my aunt ended up telling my dad's mom. So she goes to my grandmother and says, "Hey, I think something's going on with Tasia. We need to figure this out." And my mom's mom, my grandmother, is like, "Just get away from my house. There's nothing going on with her. Get away from my house," and just shunned her off. And then soon after that, we were in the kitchen, and my aunt is crying. My grandfather had just raped my sister. She's crying. She's saying, "We need to blame it on them. My dad can't go to jail." And my grandmother's like, "You're acting like this your man or something. Like, you can't live without him. Like, we're going to figure this out." And she's like, "That is my man." And my grandfather comes downstairs. There's a screaming match. My aunt asks my grandfather to choose between her and my grandmother. He chose my aunt and kicked me, my sister, my mom, and my grandmother out of the house that day. And my grandmother went to her sister's house and cried. and she's
I need a
still
second.
living in that house to this day. She claimed that he bought that house for her. So when she got married, she didn't go off. I mean, don't get me wrong, her husband was in the military for a little bit, um, but she went to Germany for a while, maybe like a year, and came back. And she's had every single child in that house, spent her whole marriage in that house. So they were sharing her. It was not a marriage, your typical marriage, is what I'll say.
You just casually said my grandfather had just raped my sister.
Yeah.
How's your sister?
Overwhelmed. My sister is overwhelmed. I think that she is honestly kind of ready for her voice to be heard in a sense, only because she's like, I don't want people to think that your story isn't valid because some things I cannot say, hey, I was there. But she has her own things that she can say, like, because I can't say, hey, I remember when this, and this happened, because if you watch the first interview I did with Trapping Anonymous, I tell you he closes the door. So only she can tell you what happened. But she does remember what happened. She does remember him coming in the room. She remembers a lot of these things. But I think it's hurtful because when I do hear things that I haven't heard before, or she hears things about me that she hasn't heard before, it's like, damn, I wish I could have been there for you, you know. Um, and my sister's a fighter just like me, so she's good. She's married. She has three beautiful children. She's supported. She has her degree from Ferris State University, so she's doing well. You know, my two younger sisters have great examples to look up to, and of course, we all look up to her because, you know, as far as like being a mother, she's great at that.
With that said, would it bother you if on camera I said your grandfather was disgusting?
Absolutely not. No.
Nasty. Or I wonder, it almost makes me wonder, or does make me wonder, what their childhood was like to inflict this type of harm
Yeah.
on your own grandchildren.
Well, it was explained to me as, and don't get me wrong, I understand this perspective, but my family is from down south, and when you go back to the 50s and the 40s and things like that, what I'm verbatim from what they say, what I am kicking and screaming about was normal in their day and time. So it was 15 and 16-year-olds marrying widowed husbands, and you know, it was 17-year-olds having children by 25-year-olds. So the things that I'm saying in her time or my grandparents' time, these are things that happen to women all the time. So I think that it is something that maybe they thought was, I can't even say they thought was okay. There's no excuse for that. But I can't say that that was something that was brought up like, hey, you know, I know this happened to you, but this was something that has been going on for years. But that is why I'm on this platform, because that means that black women didn't have a voice. We have to understand that being raped doesn't just go from black on black or through incest. It started from trying to control the black woman's mind and belittle her and make her feel less than and make her shameful of her body. And so I think that's something to think about when you are taking advantage of a beautiful black queen, you know, what that's doing to her mental.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It just bugs me out to know, like, that baby boom era, those born in the 40s and 50s, that they got secrets.
They got big secrets. They got big secrets.
They got secrets. And sometimes they're not even secrets anymore. They just don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
Um, it's that type of thing. I want to pivot just for a second, Tasia. Your your daughter, how old is she today?
She would be 18 now, senior year of high school.
Senior year in high school. And with your own hard-earned money, you had to pay for a private
I
investigator.
paid for a private investigator. And
Found out where she was.
yes, which was an extensive process because, and shout out to Keith, but first you do a background check because he needs to make sure that whoever he is investigating for is legit and that they are not the actual perpetrator, you know. And so it was a background check that took a few days, and then just getting to know me, asking me questions. Um, Mainly what I remember, you know, what do you remember? Because those things can help track, you know, do you remember what you named her? Remember the day she was born, things like that. And it wasn't hard for him to track her. It took a couple months, but it wasn't hard. So now we're at the point of just getting the DNA test. But we're pretty sure that that's her. But she's in Detroit, and so we.
Does she know that you're looking for her? Does she know about all of this?
I don't think so. No. Like I said in my previous interview, when they first started telling me things, I was so emotionally driven about the situation. I'm like, okay, she's in Detroit. What's the address? Let's go. I need to go get my
Right.
baby, you know? But he's like, Tasia, calm down. You know, it doesn't work like that. You have to be patient, first off, and you can't just go and say, hey, you belong to me, because you could go to jail for that. So it's definitely going to be a process, but we're and then two, giving me things in increments, because even like the night before I did Trapping Anonymous, they let me know some information like, okay, she is with two men. It's two gay men. They are pedophiles from what we know. So he gives me things in increments because that is a lot for me to process. Knowing that I was in a household and what I went through. And then when he laid that on me, is like, hold on, wait. Whatever you have next, hold off, because I need to just process that. So it's been an experience, and also even with the polygraph examiner, he I just spoke to him today actually. Someone questioned his license, and he's like, hey, you know, I can reach out to anyone that you interview with, let them see I have my license through the state of Michigan. He's also worked with Muskegon Police Department. He also knows the prosecutor of Muskegon very well. So that test got on his desk directly. He sent it to him directly. So this is not some, you know, random
Exactly.
that I found. And with him being a detective, he was able to help me in other ways and give me some of the resources that he has too that I don't want to disclose just because I don't want to mess the process up. But yeah.
Yeah. Um, with your daughter, this was not, do you know if there was a legal adoption that ever took place? Because there should not have been a legal adoption. You didn't sign off for anything.
So, from my understanding, this was not a legal adoption. This was an illegal adoption, and but my child was giving up willingly. So I know at this point that she was not kidnapped. It was a.
Right.
So in my mind, I'm
Right.
thinking like, who do I know that's a gay man in Detroit? Because it had to be a friend of a family or someone that they knew and was like, hey, we want to get rid of this baby, because any other way would have been too risky. That someone would have found something out, especially if it's someone who really wants to do it the correct way, that would have been too exposing for them. So they had to do it with another criminal, right?
Yeah. Um, mm, these stories, I swear it just breaks my heart because
Yeah.
your daughter now 18 years old being raised by two men who, from what I saw, attend a satanic church.
Yes.
Is
So we also found that out that she's a part of a satanic church in Detroit, which is even more devastating because, girl, your mama loved God, okay?
right.
So how do we like in my mind I'm thinking like, how do I even navigate, as you see the cross I have on, how do I, you know, come into your life and try to, because I don't want to bombard you with how I feel or what I believe in. So, you know, I told myself, go in with the understanding mind and an open heart. And if my genes and my DNA is in you, once you feel the love that I have for you,
Yeah.
the love of God gonna come through your top of your head to the bottom of your
I
soles of
agree.
your feet, and it's
I
gonna do
agree.
something to it's gonna do something to your heart.
Yeah, I agree. Because the love, I'm not going to even say the love, because what your mother felt for you, you feel something different from your child. And it's important for her to know that. It's important for her to know that you were molested and raped by your mother's husband, and your mother drugged you and tied you, held you down for these acts to take place.
Yeah.
It's important for her to know that auntie knew this was happening and no one came to your rescue. It's important for her to know that grandma was a part of this and granddaddy knew, and he raped your auntie. It's important for her to know all of this, because all of this gives her a sense of self. And with you telling your story, is different from our elders who chose not to tell their stories. They just chose to live in their trauma and just pass it down without getting any help. Without, I mean, they could have even gone to the confession box for all I care. They could
Yeah.
have done something, and it's hurtful because what you went through. When they say I don't look like what I've been through, you are the prime example for that.
Thank
And I hope, I pray, because I'm a believer too. Okay,
you.
I pray that some way, somehow, that little girl in Detroit being raised by two dads. That feels funny because that's not my language.
Mhm.
Two men, attending a satanic church, will see this and be like, "Is that my mother?" Because little sweet girl, your mother's looking for you, and you deserve to know her, and you deserve her arms around you.
Absolutely.
And Tasia, I thank you so much. There's no way. I don't know if I could have lived through all of this and still have the strength that you do. And I hope that this mess can stop. But even if not, I hope that justice is brought in some way, somehow, to the people who were involved in what you endured. And then the other part, your stepfather, say his name again. That man that your mother married, say his name
His
again.
name is Kenyon Knox.
Keon Knox. He was a military man,
He's still
right?
in the military. Mhm.
He's still in the military.
Even after the military, which he works for, knows that he declined the test. Yeah.
Ooh, baby, I know you lying. Wow. Because in a case like that, and I'm sorry, in a case like that, it would be mandatory for the military to require, like, wouldn't it be mandatory for him to take a test
You would think
and just
so.
let this go?
You would think so. I mean, honestly, if I was his boss, if I was any upper echelon that was over him, it would be enforced.
Right.
I wouldn't want. It wouldn't make any sense for it not to be. She took one, you take one. And then if she has OBGYN documentation, I have voice recordings not only saying things about me, but if you watch, I think it's in part 3 or 4, there is a comment from my grandmother where she states that he touched his my little sister came in and said he did something to her. We have all of this. They not only did I hire my own private investigator. When the military did some investigating, they found CPS cases. They found teachers that have reported back when we were in third, fourth grade that just kind of got swept under the rug. So for them to be okay with him declining the test is insane. And just like Chris Stiles said, um, if it was his child and they would put the whole thing to rest, why wouldn't you want to take it? Why would you want this to blow up? It's because you're
Right.
not going to pass it. So
Exactly. And this daughter, that's your only child, right?
yes, ma'am.
And because of what you suffered, the doctors have told you that there's too much damage and scarring for you to naturally conceive a baby when, if you decided to, correct?
Yeah, so she said that I needed to take an FSG pregnancy test, and that is to determine, which I have not yet taken because I am nervous and I am scared and I'm not ready and I'm still processing these things. So I don't want to put too much on me. So I rather just, I feel like whatever God wants it to be, it will be. So the results are going to be there whenever I'm ready to know. But um, when I was at the OBGYN and I did get to look at my uterus and see everything, um, my sex life started to make sense. Um, a lot of things about my body started to make sense. Things that I thought were normal that are really not normal are starting to make sense. So it helped me understand my body way more
Yeah.
and in a deeper sense.
It's you make me think about a lady that I met some time ago who also adopted. She adopted a child due to her inability to conceive. So it just makes me wonder like why things like this have to happen, because this woman who was in her sound mind with the inability to conceive had to become a mom through some negligent and careless people. And it always you start to wonder if the bad guys win, because while I can conceive a child, I'm going to go out here, give this child up, go out here and live my best life. But the woman who wants a child so badly has to have a child from someone who didn't even want him. You
Yeah,
get what I'm saying?
yeah. It's
But
interesting. It's a catch-22
right,
for
yeah,
sure.
these stories have to be told. Tasia, throw out your handles: Instagram, YouTube, all of that. I want everyone to know you, follow you. Your story has to be told. This is not something that we take lightly. This is not something to be ridiculed about. This is something that we um, start to take action for, because you're telling your story in the best way that you can. I want everyone to know you, follow you, watch your story. Please give out all of your socials.
Yes, so you guys can follow my YouTube at Taza. It's TAZA_Simone SIMONE 11. Please subscribe. I am new to YouTube. I've been doing it for about a year now, so I'm still growing my channel. You can also follow me on TikTok. It's Taza TAZA_Simone SIMONE. Same on Instagram, Taja_Simone. And yeah, go ahead and follow me. I look forward to sharing my world with everybody. It's
Tasia
interesting
as
because
well.
that one day I go to sleep and only certain people know, and then the next day
Right.
I wake up and an interview where I thought I was just going to share my story is almost at 50,000 views, and
Oh yeah.
50,000 people have heard my voice. So it's like a plunder of emails and DMs
DMs.
and
Yeah.
Facebook
Oh,
messages and cash apps and support, and people want to do interviews with me. And it's empowering. It's empowering,
yeah.
and it's empowering to know how inspired some women are and who are saying, "Hey, I'm happy that you use your voice because I'm scared to use mine, or I don't feel confident, or I don't feel like I speak well enough, or I don't feel like I can explain it good enough." It's like, no, and there's no way to explain your story. You say it how it happened,
Right.
because I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of women are like, "Oh, no one's gonna believe me. It doesn't sound right." Say it how it is.
Yeah. And the thing is, we carry shame. That's the one thing. It's like that's the thing that's our killer. We are carrying shame, the shame that doesn't belong to us. And I've said this several times on this platform. We carry the shame that doesn't belong to us, because you could absolutely be like, I don't want anyone to know. But what's his name again?
Kenya.
Keon Knox, right? He's out there feeling like, oh, I ain't do nothing, in the military, living his life. Mom and them all back at the house, doing what it is they doing, not even caring about the harm that they caused to you. And you're the one expected to sit in the corner with your knees pulled to your chest, crying while they get to go on with it. We're not doing that anymore.
And no, ma'am. I was.
We're not. And so I encourage everyone who, whatever your story is, share your story. It's not only healing for you, but it's healing for so many others, because at some point in time we have to expose those ugly people. What we thought was going to be something so damaging to Tasia Simone, we see that she's used this story to share her testimony, and without even realizing it, you're saving the lives of so many other women, because I can almost guarantee you 50,000 people looking at Trapping Anonymous and watching you talk to Chris Towers, they're all like, oh, wait a minute. And that's the power of social media, because we can absolutely put his name out there. And, however God decides to deal with these people, oh my God. I swear the flesh is something terrible because you want to handle it one way, and God is saying, "Vengeance is mine,
You know,
baby."
I was just saying before I got on here, like I wanted to discuss the 5 stages of grieving because it's a real thing. Before I changed my major to marketing, it was psychology, and that's something I learned in one of my psychology classes. And at first you're like upset, then you're angry, then you're trying to find a reasoning behind it. This can't be true, and then you have to just full on accept what's happened. And acceptance, once you get I'm at the level of acceptance now. I'm not
Yeah,
crying, I'm not upset, I'm not trying to figure it out, because I feel like God has shown me that you can't figure out foolishness. You'll
yeah,
go in circles, you know so it's like
baby.
I'm not even going to try to wrap my head around that.
And that's the thing, trying to figure out foolishness. And I think that's I know that's my downfall because I always have questions about the things that don't make sense.
Yeah,
That the whys, the hows, the whos, the all of the whats. I'm always like, but how? But why? When I heard your story, but how could something like this happen? But why aren't they in jail? But who could let something like this happen? Who could do something like this to a child? All of this, and like you said, you can't figure out foolishness. You just can't.
you can.
Tasia, thank you, girl.
You're welcome.
You are phenomenal. I appreciate your time. It is not taken for granted. We want your story to get out there. In fact, this story should be a movie. So we need Spike Lee. We need Tyler Perry.
Okay, we need Oprah
We need,
Winfrey.
yes, we need all of them to hear this, to know this, because, and this is not inspired by a true story. This is in fact based
A
on a
true
true
story.
story. And for that, I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having